Until this afternoon, the House of Representatives was expected to vote this week on a bill to reauthorize FISA in Section 702. That's Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which allows the government to surveil non-U.S. citizens. But that vote has been delayed because of disagreements over proposed reforms. Now, we heard a little bit about that with Congressman Mike Waltz earlier. Now, FISA was first created in 1978, but beefed up after the intelligence failures leading up to the 9/11 attacks. But has the surveillance authority allowed the U.S. government to spy on Americans without a warrant? This is what's caused so much consternation over the reauthorization of this. Joining me now to discuss this, Congressman Warren Davidson. He serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Financial Services Committee. He represents the 8th Congressional District of Ohio, and he's been working to get reform measures through. Congressman Davidson, welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Definitely an honor to join you. Thank you, Tony.
Well, it's good to see you this morning, and we spoke briefly about this morning, and since we talked this morning, the leadership has pulled this back from a vote. But let's talk about your reform efforts and where those stand.
Well, look, it's a disappointing decision by the Speaker to pull it back. The good news is he didn't say we're not going to do reform. He's just recognizing we don't have a clear consensus. It is tough because, the intelligence community and the Intelligence Committee in Congress essentially wants to keep spying on Americans. In fact, the amendments that the Intelligence Committee proposed were all to expand the surveillance capabilities that they already have. They want to add ways to spy on Americans. And this is a rare moment where you have bipartisan agreement in different ways. So this isn't a normal Republican versus Democrat debate. I was at Rules Committee, and Jerry Nadler and Jim Jordan were all saying how much they agree with one another, and Chip Roy and Thomas Massey were all joining in. And you're like, what kind of Twilight Zone episode is this? But the reality is the judiciary folks want to protect civil liberties and still protect the American people. But the intelligence community essentially are less attuned to the civil liberties argument and all in on their view of national security. The American people know that we're supposed to spy on foreigners. The F in FISA is for foreign intelligence, but they also know that the government is spying on them. And they're using the powers that they've got in an abusive way. I mean, they're targeting everyone from pro-life Catholics to people that go to school board meetings to, frankly, people that go to protests for BLM or people that back certain political candidates. These are massive abuses, and no one's been held accountable for it. That's why we have to get the reforms through.
So, Congressman, can we do both? Can we preserve the element that helps keep the nation safe and make sure that we don't have, a deep state, we don't have government that is violating the very freedoms that, we fight for?
Well, our founders certainly thought so, and that's why they created the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights limited the government's ability to abuse its power. And the Fourth Amendment doesn't say, hey, if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. We're just going to look into everything. If you really wanted to keep everyone safe, you could put a soldier in every home. But the founding fathers said, no, we have the Third Amendment. We're not going to let you put troops in every home or any home, frankly. And we're also not going to let the government collect your data without getting a warrant. So you have to have probable cause for citizens, and you have to get a warrant. And that is the check on the abuse by the executive branch, is they have to go to the judiciary branch and get a warrant. They have to make the case that we have a reason to go after this person. And in that way, there's a chance for accountability.
And under 702, they've not had to get that warrant.
That's right. And frankly, the sort of mock court way that they do it, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court that they are doing it with, is still an executive branch, dominated system. And when they did come to the court, when they had judges sitting on the FISA court, and they provided classified information and they spied on the Trump campaign, no one's been held to account for that.
So I want to underscore we're talking about the same provision that was used against President Trump, then candidate Trump, back in 2016, where they went to a FISA court to get the warrant to spy on different individuals associated with this campaign. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they've abused the system that they already had, and that's why we need to make sure that you have to get an actual warrant. And frankly, you can't circumvent that. The amendment that I had proved to be one of the more controversial ones.
So why the opposition to getting a warrant?
They say that it's going to make it too cumbersome. And look, having Congress is cumbersome. If you just had a king, you could execute everything much faster, right? And the founding fathers knew that the division of labor was going to be a little slower, maybe a little less efficient, but then they knew that that would make the government have to be more accountable to the public. And that's the trade-off. And, you know, that's why they say, hey, it's more efficient if we can just get everything. And there are exceptions in the warrant provisions that were presented in the Judiciary Bill and in the amendment that was presented by the Judiciary Committee to say that, yeah, if there's an emergency, there's some pending disaster, you have all the emergency exceptions in there. And again, there is no limitation on spying against foreigners. You can spy on Vladimir Putin all you want. He's not protected by the Fourth Amendment, but American citizens are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I want our country to be safe, but I want to protect my freedoms. I'm actually more fearful of my own government right now than I am a foreign government, given what we've seen in the last 6 years. But you know, maybe I've been here too long. I'm a little cynical. This news coming out today from the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, who is one of the big advocates for the reauthorization of FISA as it is, you know, releasing this information but not giving us information of this threat, this external national, you know, external threat to national security. The timing of this just seems a little odd to me.
Yeah, I mean, people know there are coincidences because, you know, there are. But the level of trust that you have in the intelligence community, one person said to me, this is more like bragging that we have the power to just do it openly than actually something that should be taken seriously. And frankly, I had mixed reactions from people that went in and looked at the intelligence. I didn't. I was busy, you know, putting this amendment together and going before the Rules Committee trying to get our amendment in order. Before everything kind of got scuttled.
So do we know if this information that they have came through 702 of FISA as them being able to point, this is why we need FISA?
From publicly reported information, I think people believe that it was something that Intel presented that shows FISA was useful for some information collection. And that's good because we were planning to reauthorize it. But the problem is that we know we need to reform it.
Right.
So there wasn't a plan to just let it lapse. I mean, when this thing was passed into law, it has a sunset provision for a reason. We anticipate a period where maybe we won't need to keep doing this because the target is foreign intelligence. Right. But we also know that in doing that, you're sweeping up a lot of domestic
and we have to be
U.S. citizen information.
Extra careful to preserve the rights and freedoms of Americans. Final question for you, Congressman Warren Davidson. You talked about a soldier in every house. How about we put those soldiers on the border and protect the country down there? Yesterday, the House voting to impeach the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas. What's the future look like? I know it's going to go over to the Senate. The Senate's going to, just kick it to the side. But is the border issue going to be tackled?
The border issue has to be tackled. And look, the president broke it. He signed executive orders when he first came in, and illegal immigration accelerated rapidly. I mean, the New York Times, which is normally a big ally for the Bidens and the Democratic Party, pointed out that 1.5 years into the Biden administration, illegal immigration had produced revenue for the cartels 26 times the level that it was producing for Trump. They said that the cartels were making about $500 million a year smuggling people across the border, but under Joe Biden, they were making over $13 billion a year smuggling people across the border. And that was only a year and a half in. Now it's only gotten worse. Yeah. So the number's probably even higher. And look, impeaching Mayorkas, we don't expect the Senate's going to do the right thing and remove him. I'm disappointed none of my Democrat colleagues came over and did the right thing and impeached him. Fundamentally, though, it was the right vote. Yeah. It sets a horrible precedent to say that once you've got a secretary who's Senate confirmed, he no longer has to obey the law and can, in fact, put out executive orders that are completely contradictory to the law.
Well, and I
He has
agree.
to be held to account for that.
I absolutely agree. Plus, I also think it draws, it puts a spotlight on the border issue. This is one of the most significant issues we're facing. I mean, we got many issues, but this is, we've got our back doors open. We've had 300 known terrorists, those on the terrorist watch list, come in that have been caught in just the last couple of years. There's who knows how many more that have come in. Congressman Warren Davidson, always great to see you. Thanks so much for fighting to protect our freedoms on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. God bless you and your viewers.